Take it there, who gon' take it there, who gon' take it there, who gon' take it there? Electricity, 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 electricity. You know what's in the air, you know what's in the air, you know what's in the air, you know what's in the air. It's possibility, it's possibility, it's possibility, it's possibility.
So Twitch streamer Hasan Piker, left-wing political commentator, who I've covered a decent amount because I think he's becoming one of the more relevant commentators on the left. He got detained at the border on his way back into America by CBP and asked some questions. He did not get arrested. He was allowed back into the country, but they asked him some very suspicious questions about his coverage, about his personal beliefs, things that the state isn't supposed to be asking you about your protected free speech and your political beliefs and whatnot. And so, I mean, stuff like this is why Hasan is a relevant figure. Does he push the line sometimes? Yes, he does. I think that now is a more crucial time than ever to be doing that. And so even though some of the things that Hasan has said have gotten him into trouble that wasn't worth it, a lot of the stuff that he said that has gotten him in trouble was stuff that needed to be said. And that's why he ends up on the type of lists that got him stopped by CBP. So let me play a couple clips of this, of him talking about what happened. Like I said, didn't get arrested or anything, so he's fine. But I think that there's some very interesting implications here, as well as I want to go over why I don't think this ended with him being fully arrested, and, you know, what kinds of changes and escalations of this policy we might see going forward.
He knew exactly who the fuck I was, but he was basically like, he always made it seem as though he was asking certain things that after discovering in the process of that conversation, he would ask additional questions. So he kept saying, "What do you do as a job? Do you talk about the news?" And I was like, "Yeah, I talk about the news." And he kept saying, "Okay, so when you talk about the news, do you talk about the war?" And I was like, "What do you mean by that?" He's like, "Do you talk about Trump?" And that was the first time where I was like, what the fuck is this question? Like, I literally straight up told him, I was like, why are you asking me this? Like, I was like, what does this have to do with anything? Yeah, they asked me about my fucking Twitch bans, chat. It's not even a joke. They asked me about fucking Twitch chat. Like, Twitch bans. The reason for why they're doing that is, I think, to try to create an environment of fear, to try to get people like myself, or at least like others that would be in my shoes that don't have that same level of security, to shut the fuck up. And for me, I'm gonna use the privilege that I have in that moment to try and see what the fuck they're doing. Okay, I'm sitting there and they're asking me about Trump, they're asking me about like Hamas, and he kept saying stuff like, do you like Hamas? Like, do you support Hamas? Do you think Hamas is a resistance group? Do you think Hamas is a terrorist group or a resistance group? Like, he just kept asking over and over again, right? And I kept repeating the same statement over and over again. I kept saying, I kept saying a couple different things. One, in terms of like Israel and all the wars, I was like, I'm on the side of civilians. I want the endless bloodshed to end. I am a pacifist. I want wars to end. I just kept repeating that over and over again. Every single time he asked me a question, I just kept repeating that. And every single time he asked me a question, a leading question about Hamas, I kept saying, the United States State Department recognizes Hamas as a terrorist organization. The United States State Department recognizes Hamas as a terrorist organization. Depending on how I answer those questions, like, I'm fucking going to jail. Because the first stuff was just illegal for him to ask me those questions, and completely idiotic and ridiculous. And I think they did it because they know who the fuck I am, and they wanted to put the fear of God into me, not knowing that I'm a stubborn piece of shit, and that's not going to work at all, right? The second half of the conversation was actually like, because he left, went away for like 35 minutes, came back, and then he asked like actionable items. But One thing that I will take note of that I thought was very interesting was the fact that a lot of the shit that like the Ethan Kleins of the world have like cried about over and over again were unironically brought up in that fucking conversation. I was shocked. Okay, not like the bleach sword obviously, but like the Houthi. Like, did you interview a Houthi? It says here that you interviewed a Houthi. And I was like, or was he actually a Houthi? And I was like, he's not. You can look to all of the reporting that came out afterwards and before I interviewed him that he is not a Houthi, that he is a regular Yemeni citizen. And I said, like, his name is Rashid al-Haddad. He is not even a Shia. And the dude, luckily, again, Iraqi, went, oh yeah, that's right. That's a Sunni last name. Al-Haddad is a Sunni last name. So he must not have been a Houthi. And the very fact that that was like a point of contention that could have fucking gotten me arrested is insane. And I genuinely, in that moment, was thinking like, these fucking dumbass slop tubers are actually playing with fucking fire.
So there you have it. He's doing a stream not from his normal streaming location. He was abroad. I just covered him doing an interview with a French leftist politician. And so I guess he was coming back from that trip. I don't know if there was anywhere else he went or if there was any other reason that he was there. He's been doing a tour of various media appearances lately. It seems like he's trying to be outside more, touch grass more. I don't know. But stuff like that is why I think he's becoming more relevant. Like, his commentary's always been pretty good. He has been one of the most consistent political streamers, and so had one of the biggest political audiences on Twitch until I think Asmongold now knocked him out, and Asmongold's audience is growing on YouTube as well. But previously, you know, Hasan was kind of a pioneer when it came to political coverage. So there was always some relevance there because of that, especially because of the fact that he would get in trouble at certain moments, got banned on Twitch a couple times. But I think what makes him far more relevant as a figure is going out, talking to various people, doing the traveling necessary to, you know, meet with Jean-Luc Mélenchon, I believe is his the pronunciation, and other people. He spoke with the firefighters at the LA fires. You know, he's been doing interesting interviews like this, AOC and Bernie Sanders. He's making an effort to do that because he has a large audience, so he's trying to reach that large audience with a positive message and a message towards positive change. And so because of his advocacy for Palestine and his criticism of Israel, he has become not just a controversial figure, but a targeted figure. And this you know, accosting of him at the border is an example of that. Now, I think what happened here, he goes into some interesting detail about what they asked him and makes it pretty clear that they knew who he was, and they had some sort of reference brief that was made up about him that referenced a lot of the similar things that his critics online have also said about him. And so I'll get back to that in a second because I think that's really important. But the other thing that I think is important to recognize here is that I think it would have probably been very easy for this to go a different way. Now, Hasan is a big public figure. He has a big audience. So, you know, are they going to be chomping at the bit to publicly arrest a guy like this and risk an enormous backlash? I mean, there would be an immediate backlash if Hasan were to be arrested, and there are many high profile but not quite as hot button targets that they could focus on actually arresting and detaining. So they might leave a guy like Hasan alone even if they stop him to question him at the border. However, I think that what happened here is and to be clear, I keep saying the border, but he was flying from overseas, so it was customs enforcement that stopped him. But I think that this is more of a matter of personnel for them, because if you think about it, how this whole thing sort of breaks down, they have the capacity to stop a certain amount of people. Obviously, they have customs and border enforcement enforcing these new standards, guidelines. These are not rules. These are not laws that they're applying in terms of who can come into the country. These are essentially just marching orders that they've gotten from the administration. And so I think it's real non-specific in terms of what they are stopping people for or what the calls they're making in terms of who they want to detain. However, like I said, clearly they had some reference points for who Hasan is. So that shows that they have enough personnel to be keeping track of these things at entry points and people who are equipped to stop them when they come in. I don't know if he said they looked at his phone, but they knew who he was. They were asking questions about his Twitch controversies, his career. I think, though, that they don't necessarily, just because they have the ability to stop somebody, maybe they knew he was coming, maybe they didn't. But that doesn't mean that they also have the capacity to fully arrest and detain somebody on the spot and take them away to a different location. Now, they could if they really wanted to. However, if they were really carrying out an operation like that, where they were prepared to detain however many people they needed to or whatever, they would have the personnel there, they would have the trucks, and they would essentially have an operation set up. So to me, what that says is that while they did, detain Hasan and asked him questions, and clearly, like he said, they wanted to put some fear in him and they wanted him to know that they're watching him, as well as wanting to see how he would answer certain questions when asked. But I think, honestly, the difference between him being let go the way he was and him actually being arrested and effectively disappeared the way they've been trying to do with certain students and whatnot, I think the difference is really just a matter of how prepared they happen to be at that particular port of entry to take someone away like that. In other words, Hasan was not a big enough priority that they had a whole arrest operation prepared so that they could grab him when he came into the country. But that doesn't mean that they're going to do that, not going to do that with other people. And it doesn't mean that they wouldn't grab Hasan that way, or people smaller than him, people with a similar reputation to him but less influence, whatever. I think it's literally just a matter of coincidence that if for some reason they happen to have an operation set up at that location for a different reason and Hasan happened to be coming through, they probably would have taken the opportunity to fully detain him, send him to a facility, and attempt to deport him. Now, obviously, there would be a huge amount of backlash. It probably wouldn't be worth it, and obviously they know that. They know if this is a public figure who has a reputation, he's streaming every day, it would instantly become apparent to people that something had happened, the information would get out, and even some of these students that have been detained and fast-tracked for deportation that are lesser well-known are still free now and basically were ordered to be let out by judges. So, while the Trump administration has gotten away with disappearing quite a few people already, and anybody who didn't think that's what the words mass deportation meant, then I have a few more bridges to sell you. I feel like I can get a couple more bridges off to you before this is all over. But, they don't have full impunity to deport people in this way. The courts are challenging their ability to even use the Alien Enemies Act or espionage, or whatever the act that they're using, that obscure law that they're using to deport people without due process. They're being challenged on these things. So it doesn't mean they're not still doing what they can, but it means that they're probably going to risk less high-profile situations, and Hasan would be probably the most high-profile arrest that they made so far at this point. So I think that's the calculation that happens when they detain him. What he has said publicly is enough for the Trump administration to decide that he is a threat to civilization and deport him. Hasan knows this, and the officers that detained him know this as well. But it's a question of, is it worth it, and do they have the faculty at that exact moment to just arrest him without question? And that's the reason I'm saying that, is because the way they've gone about this is more so a matter of collecting anybody that they can, rather than being like, oh, is this person actually a threat? Is this person exercising free speech? Is this person, actually gesturing towards violence, or has this person done anything violent? They don't really seem to care about any of that. What they care about is can they make the excuse for why you were detained and deported? And is there, do you fit the description enough that they can just get you out of the country as quickly as possible before too many people ask questions. So while somebody like Hasan would be harder to do that with, it doesn't mean they wouldn't do it. Doesn't mean that traveling won't continue to be more dangerous for him going forward. So this is a good example of like what to look out for. Just because Hasan is a big figure doesn't mean they also can't pull up information on you as well. And the last thing that he said there that was interesting is that, you know, accusations that people like Ethan Klein have made of him, particularly when he interviewed the person who was said to be a Houthi soldier, and there's controversy around that, and he's, you know, information has come out that he is not Houthi, he's just a citizen, a civilian, but, you know, that, I guess, rumor was floating around about him at the time. You know, that's the kind of thing that put Hasan's life at risk in this situation, and certainly puts the life of, you know, these people overseas at risk who are not even marginally protected by, you know, the American Constitution. Like, it has gotten people killed in the Middle East, much less getting a guy like Hasan arrested in America. So, you know, it's the kind of mistake that I personally have made in taking a guy like Ethan Klein in good faith, wanting to hear out his argument, and repeating the claim that this guy was a Houthi, because that specific rumor, you know, could have gotten Hasan actually arrested and deported. And so that is why it's important to not take people like Ethan Klein seriously on this issue, because his lack of seriousness on the issue actually creates problems that are very, very serious. And so one more thing that I want to point out that is going on right now is you have some protests in New Jersey over the mayor of Newark in New Jersey was arrested outside of an ICE facility that was erected essentially without the proper permitting in the city and without any type of permission from the community. So there's been lots of protests outside of this ICE detention center, and this mayor of Newark was arrested in some kind of clash with police, probably started by police. And now that mayor has been released. And it's not, you know, the Trump administration has been hinting that they don't mind going after judges. The FBI already has arrested a judge, and they want to threaten mayors. They want mayors to feel like they may be arrested. Now, like I said, the protests already successfully got this guy out of jail, and they probably weren't planning to keep him there for long. But what you see in this clip here that I'm about to play is the community standing up in defense of this particular action, and I just wanted to point something very specific out about this video. So let's check that out. So here you see faith ministers of different faiths, different denominations, all linking arms to block the entrance of this ICE facility. Now, I don't know how long they held this for, or if, you know, this is a blocking effort that is still going, if they were just doing it for the cameras. But what I do know is that this method of linking arms like this is a classic protest method, because even though, you know, it is putting your physical body at risk, the more people that you have in a human chain like this, or especially if it's like a bundle of people, the harder it is to unravel that and get past it. So, I mean, this is the kind of thing that you see people doing in Black Bloc during Black Lives Matter protests or like serious unrest. This is the type of protest method that people kind of do instinctively as well as a matter of tradition. But here you see, you know, leaders of the community doing it in a more almost, I hate to say like normie sense, right? Like these are just normal people in the community. They're not Antifa, although this is effectively Antifa. What they are doing is Antifa. And the only thing I want to point out about this before leaving is that this happened because a member of their community was arrested. And a prominent member, obviously, was the mayor. So, you know, that's enough to make some waves for sure. But my point here is not just that, arresting a mayor or doing something outlandish like that is enough to bring out protest and bring out support, although that is an important thing to keep an eye on. But it was the fact that this was such a strongly upheld member of the community that caused members of the community to come out and engage in a serious act of defiance, not like, a photo op or using it for some kind of like political points or a political speech or something, but they're actually putting their physical bodies in front of the entrance to block the way. That's the kind of thing that we need to see on a nationwide basis, especially at a grassroots local level. We need to see this type of resistance from, people in the community, people who are well upheld in the community, people who are not. This is the only thing that is actually going to stop this fascism, is if groups of people that cannot be easily written off as Antifa terrorists, Hamas sympathizers, whatever, but rather members of the community who are still going to be targeted and attacked by the police, make no mistake. However, this is the type of resistance that is actually going to lead to serious tensions within these policies that the Trump administration is trying to administer. They can't do this without resistance, and they're testing the waters to see how much resistance they're going to face. And so if what it takes for real communities to come out and show real resistance is members of these communities being the ones who are targeted by the feds, especially in a high profile way, then we should seize on those moments, because it may be the only hope that we have to building real community resistance against this fascism, rather than just like fringe resistance, which is what we've seen so far. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. And if you really want to support, consider becoming a member. That's the best way to support this channel. Posting all kinds of content there, like book reviews, movie reviews, music. If you like the beats that play in the back of these podcasts, all of that's posted there. Plus my EPs. I just dropped a new EP called Dead Internet Theory that's available on all streaming platforms, and that was available first for members only. So if you want access to that, become a member. And if there's other stuff that you'd like to see as members only content, let me know and we'll figure some things out.